Speaking of flexible products, though, in the context, Adil, of a lot of banks out there recently announcing that they are cutting their savings bank account rates, quite a few of the frontline banks are now offering anywhere between 2.7 to 2.75%. So we've just discussed on the show very recently that leaving money in your savings bank account is criminal at this stage. From that perspective, is a Flexi fixed deposit, which is or a sweep in, sweep out fixed deposit, is that something to consider? How does it work?
Sure, Alex. So let's see how it works, and then I'll tell you what we're recommending to consumers. We see at Bank Bazaar looking at this facility, right? So the way it works is as follows. Like you said, repo rates have been cut. So banks, and several large banks have now cut their savings account rate to 2.75%, which is below the inflation rate that we're seeing today. So the way the facility works is the account you set up, and this varies bank by bank, so you can check with or you can research online to see which bank you want to go with. The bank will have a certain level above which, right, the sweep out will work. So that means sweep out, typically, let's say a bank will say it works at 40,000, 50,000, 60,000. So that essentially means until that level, the money will stay in the savings account. But above that level, the money will be swept into a fixed deposit. That's point number one. So you need to check what that level is with the bank, because there's some banks which have it at 30,000, there's some banks which have it at 1 lakh. And often, right, it's not a number you can choose. So that's the first metric. The second metric, right, is once you have more than that amount, and for our example, let's work with 50,000 being the sweep out level. Every 10,000 chunk, right, the bank can say, I will package into an FD, right? Now that metric can be 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, but let's assume that the bank you're working with offers it at 10,000. So let's say you have 70,000 at a certain point of time in your bank account, automatically two 10,000 packets of FDs will be automatically set up as part of the sweep out without you having to do anything. Third point, right? Depending on how long you leave the FD, you will earn the FD interest rate that the bank offers. So let's say the FD remains with the bank for 30 days, you earn the 30-day FD rate. If it's there for 1 year, you earn the 1-year FD rate. And there is no penalty for breaking the FD. So unlike a standard FD, when you break it, you don't pay a penalty, you earn the FD rate on however long you kept it, 30 days, 90 days, 1 year. And what happens is when your savings account falls below a certain level, then the FD is broken and brought back into your savings account. So this is a really nice facility for people who are not in the active process of, let's say, moving their money into SIP or into index mutual fund. They just want a facility wherein they know, hey, if my savings account is over 50,000, I want it to go into an FD. Very often at Bank Bazaar, we see that people don't do this on their salary account because, your salary account goes high at the start of the month. And if it's anything like my salary account, it falls pretty quickly. So then you have FDs being set up, FDs being broken. So you typically want to do it on a separate account wherein you park your excess cash. And there it sort of makes sense because, you move the money in, it gets set in an FD. You might keep it there for 60 days, in which case you earn a lower interest. You might keep it there for a year, in which case you earn a higher FD rate. And if you break it, there's no penalty. So it's a very good product in that sense, Alex.
Okay, that's interesting. And, I also want to talk about what we discussed just yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, on the show, or just earlier this week, Adil, which is we were talking about the fact that this interest rate on the savings bank accounts has been cut. We're talking about the fact that if you are using, and we talked about the emergency fund, which a lot of people keep, right? And a lot of people do keep it in their bank accounts as well, just purely because it's lazy money, I guess, or it's just simplicity. But then we talked about whether or not a liquid fund in a mutual fund space or an arbitrage fund, again from the mutual fund space, can be used instead. But the sweep in seems to be something to consider, particularly for those that are not necessarily in the top tax bracket, because in the top tax bracket, you'd be paying 30% on interest. Is that the way that you look at it as well?
Yeah, that's a good point. So you could, consider it for a emergency fund. But like you said, the catch is, right, in a liquid mutual fund, for example, you have the same context of liquidity, right? So you want your money immediately, you get it. The tax advantage, however, right, is in a liquid mutual fund, depending on when you sell, at that point, the tax becomes incident. The thing with an FD is the tax becomes incident as soon as you get paid the interest. But, the way you just summarized it for me, I really liked, Alex.
Okay, yeah, and also your capital gains is worked out in a mutual fund in terms of first in, first out, right? So you're not paying the entire tax at one go, and you pointed out that very well.